What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of RxBar, Quest Nutrition, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. Rise25 creates 100% outsourced VIP special events for software companies or conference organizers. We have actually helped companies, and what it does is really help get more referrals, increase retention with their highest level customers, and get more engaged new customers. We do them all over the country. We just did one a few days ago in Chicago. We've done them this past year. I know Dan's a big fan of high-level masterminds too. We did them in Austin, Chicago, Santa Barbara, San Diego, New York, Sonoma, Vegas. So if you're interested in bringing your highest value, your highest level customers together to connect and collaborate, then go to Rise25. You can email us and see if your community qualifies. So, Dan, I'm really excited. Today we have Dan Meadors, co-founder of Wholesale Formula with Eric Lambert. They began selling on Amazon as a hobby with an original investment of only $600. They worked nights. It's not a push button solution, right? You in the beginning have to actually put in some work. So let's not pretend that's not there, right? Work nights and weekends buying products on clearance at local retail stores, selling them on Amazon for a profit. It only took a few months for them to see the potential, and they turned the hobby into a business and both left their full-time jobs to sell on Amazon full-time. Since then, they've been able to generate over $20 million in sales on Amazon, and they've developed so that actually they don't have to work all the nights and weekends anymore, right? You developed your own unique system take advantage of wholesale opportunities called the Wholesale Formula, and the Wholesale Formula is the blueprint they use to build their multi-million-dollar Amazon business, and he hails from Kentucky. Dan, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Jeremy. I'm pleased to be on here with you, man.
Yeah, and so I want to start off in here. Okay, so obviously you're working a full-time job. You're discovering Amazon is a great avenue for your business. What were you doing? What was your day job?
I was actually a chief officer in a local internet retail company.
So you have an unfair advantage already. You already know internet retail.
Well, I mean, we actually didn't sell on Amazon, and we sold on eBay and some other third-party platforms. But I mean, the bulk of our sales came through our website. And to be honest,
it's harder to do.
Right. I mean,
you learn the hard way. What kind of stuff were you selling?
We were one of the largest toys and games independent retailers in the country for more niche hobby games like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that.
All right. So what was working online then to sell those on your website?
Well, I mean, it was we had a really strong website, really strong SEO, and we're one of the older companies in the space. But it was actually I kind of found that job almost by accident as well. Like I originally had intended to be an attorney and was going to law school and got that job in the summer and just had a real passion and true love for e-commerce because I love the way that the internet connects people and allows people to buy things beyond what they can physically get to. So once I got into that role, I just truly loved it. And it was a real passion. And then along came Amazon, and it started out. You mentioned it. It was $600 investment, and it was we didn't want to lose money, but in the same token, it was something that seemed exciting and fun, so we had to try it out, and that's it. Yeah. That's how we got the start with Amazon as well.
So why did you initially want to be an attorney?
It's just it was something that was a kind of a passion of mine. I've always enjoyed debate. I love politics in general. I love research and things like that. So a lot of the things that I was good at, it suited me very well. Yeah,
I definitely want to talk about your process for your research process and finding new products. But you started off with retail arbitrage. So what were you doing early on?
For sure. I mean, it was, I'll preface with, we are from southern Kentucky. You guys can probably tell from my accent, but It's not exactly what I would call a hub of commerce. We have one Walmart. The closest Target to my house, I have to drive an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah. So, while we were out shopping in stores, it was very meager here. But ultimately, I remember our first little shopping trip. One of our buddies told us about this business model, and it kind of explained how it worked and took us out and showed us. And then we just had to do it. So we went out in the store and we bought a bunch of stuff that kind of fit those predetermined guidelines we had and sent it in. And to be honest, I literally thought we were throwing money in the garbage because it was like, there's no way people are going to buy this crap. Like it was just.
What were you buying?
It was a bunch of little toy Disney cars, but they were selling in Walmart for $3, and we were selling them or pricing them on Amazon for $18. And I was like, there's literally no way anybody's going to buy a small little tiny Disney car for $18. But we ended up sending them in, and holy moly, it was insane. Like, just people were buying these things left and right, and that's when I knew that we had found something that we could really excel at. Because there was such a crazy demand on Amazon for even small little products like that. And me and Eric immediately knew it, and it just became an immediate passion for us. Like, we couldn't wait to get our cash out so we could go spend more money and send more stuff into Amazon.
How many were you buying up at a time? Like, will you just clear the shelf on those things?
Basically, yeah. Like, if it fit our predetermined, like, we had just had, we didn't have any idea what we were doing. So we had these little predetermined guidelines that Andrew, our buddy, had told us about. He was like, hey, if you stay under a 10,000 sales rank, you can buy easily up to 20 and move through them pretty good. And, that's not very scientific. Like, it was just, okay, that's what we'll do. And we just looked for good, well-ranked products that were, had good sales ranks. And we were buying, up to 20 and 30 units of those.
So what was next? You didn't do that. You still don't do that. So you transitioned. For
sure. Whenever we got started, it was, you mentioned it. We were working nights, weekends, etc. And it was still tiring. But we had a really good December. And anybody who's listening to this, I'll go ahead and preface with, December's good for everybody. Don't just assume you're doing an amazing job. So we had a really good December. I think we did $30,000 or $40,000 in sales. And at one point I was just talking to Eric, and I was like, imagine if we were doing this full time, man. Like, how much would we have done? And so in January we went full time, and we left our jobs, which was definitely a mistake. Shouldn't have left. It was a mistake. For sure. We just weren't financially ready. We weren't financially ready. And we were still breathing the Q4 high, so to speak. Like, everybody's selling.
That's what I tell people. If you're thinking about moving to Chicago, you come in the winter.
Exactly, and that's
you don't make that decision to quit like in December when you're riding high.
For sure, because even if you're doing great, your summer sales are going to be generally not as strong as your Q4 sales. So I feel like we jumped a bit early, but I think that puts people in a situation to where you're going to get the best out of them.
You have to make it work too.
Right.
Now your back's against the wall, and you just got to do it.
For sure.
Was that a tough decision? I don't know what your family situation was like, if you had to talk to a significant other at the time, or.
Well, that's I wouldn't advise this either. I do have, my wife. She's wonderful and supportive, but I was worried that she would talk me out of it, so I quit before I even talked to her. Like, I told her how passionate I was about this business, and it was more of a hobby, but I actually gave my notice before I talked to her. And then when I told her, she was like, yeah, you should go take that back immediately. Like, you should go undo this because it seems like a terrible mistake. Because I had a fantastic job. I had a well over a 6-figure salary. It was a great job too. I got to travel all the time. I got to work with games and toys and cool stuff like that. But it wasn't mine. It wasn't something that I was just growing on my own. And that's what I was craving. And that's what, ultimately Eric was craving too.
Yeah. In retrospect, what would you have done then?
I think we probably should have waited about 6 months. And ultimately, I think it was the right decision to leave. I feel like we put ourselves against a wall, and I put my family in a more difficult position than I should have. I should have. I let passion take over rather than logic, and it did work out. But at the end of the day, I felt like I took some liberties that I shouldn't have with,
it's
with
more
them.
of a risk. So retail arbitrage, what was the next model that you went with?
Well, I mean, when we were doing retail arbitrage, I mean, it was great. But like I said, we weren't. It's not exactly. There's not a ton of stores here, so when we went full time, I had to replace a pretty significant income. So it was a lot of work, and Eric had a great job too. I mean, they had a very strong salary as well. So we drove literally around the country. I mean, we were gone 5 and 6 days a week, driving around, picking up inventory, coming back, shipping it. We'd spend a day with our families and on the road again. And that lasted for probably about 2 years.
Wow, that's a long time. That's grind.
Yep.
They should have done like a reality show instead of Pawn Star or whatever it is. They follow you around the country.
They could. I mean, it's a wild thing. I mean,
what was
it's
the
crazy.
farthest you went?
I mean, we went to New York. We went to Florida. We've drove west to literally we were traveling.
What were you driving in? I mean, were you stocking it in your car or?
No, we fairly early on we bought a company van. This van was not what I would call a nice van. I mean, it was definitely old, beat up, and eventually we were able to upgrade it into a brand new one of the high top Nissan NVs, and that was a big change for us. And that was like in 2013 when we upgraded our van. But yeah, I mean, we were just driving around, 2 dudes in a van, like big white van. Coming in, clearing a bunch of shelves, leaving, throwing the stuff in the trunk and in the back, and heading back.
What was your best find?
I think our biggest moneymaker was probably Benefiber.
What's
and
that?
I guess it was 2013-ish. It's a dietary fiber supplement, and apparently it is very, very. A lot of pregnant women love this product because they have difficulties using the restroom when they're pregnant. And so what happened is Novartis had a recall on a lot of other products, and it caused them to shut their facilities down for FDA inspection for quite some time. Well, it takes a long time to get back up to speed, and that caused a big market shortage on that specific product. So you could go into Walmart and find a product that was selling for $9. And at the height, we were selling those same bottles on Amazon for $90.
Wow.
So
did you know that ahead of time, or how did you figure out that you should be? Were you following that in the news?
No. It was funny because I scanned one of those items in Walmart and I saw it and I was like, wow, this is one of because the sales rank was amazing, the profit was amazing, minimal competition, and it was. There was obviously something going on with that product. So I talked to Eric about it, and he did a whole bunch of research and found out about the Novartis issue.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, that actually opened our eyes to starting to research with the news, and we did hit a few home runs later based on that, like with the Little Debbie cakes or Twinkies rather.
What happened?
Twinkies. I think they declared bankruptcy and ended up getting purchased.
Yeah, Hostess declared bankruptcy. Yeah.
And we were ahead of that and made a ton of money with Twinkies because as soon as Twinkies got announced that they weren't were going out of business, and there was that little bit. I think it was like a 2 week window.
Continue type of thing.
Right. That caused prices to spike on Amazon, and we made a whole bunch of money with Twinkies, and ate a whole bunch of Twinkies. So.
That's not good for your health.
No. Also, wouldn't advise eating Twinkies, or a whole bunch of them, rather.
So, you're doing this for a couple of years. Then what?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that was the problem. Is I have a family. I have 2 kids, a wife. Eric has 4 kids now. At the time, he had 3 kids, and it was tough being away so much. But we were making great money. Yeah. We were making great money. We had done. $800,000 and close to $1 million the second year, and our profit margins. I mean, that's the thing about retail arbitrage. Your profit margins are amazing, but it is work. I mean, you're physically going out and finding your next dollar, right? And if I stop, my sales just go to nothing. Right. That was the whole problem with that business model for us. Was that when we stopped working, our sales went down, and it was just an endless cycle of we'd made our own business and it was doing well. But we had effectively kind of created a prison for ourselves where, we were locked into working for ourselves forever. And that's not what that while the money was fine, that wasn't what we were looking for when we decided to create our own business. It wasn't, I didn't want to make myself, effectively a slave to the business for the rest of my life. So we started thinking about other models and what might work for us, and we tried private label, and did fairly well with it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on private label?
I mean, I think it's a great model. I think it's for creative people, I think you can have a lot of success with it. It wasn't necessarily for us because it was, while we did have success with it, it was very hands-on. And to me, whenever, the more hands-on you are with a specific product, like, it took a lot more initial research to find product gaps. Like your research is different and slightly, quite a bit more thorough. Beyond that, you're effectively starting a product from scratch, and you have to drive traffic. No one's
heard of you. Like obviously you go do the retail arbitrage or even wholesale. There's already people looking for that specific product, I imagine. Right?
For sure. And that's, that was what we ran into, and we weren't great at the time at running advertising, and it was just that process was harder for us than it was for somebody who was a little more marketing savvy, so to speak. So it felt like that, while we were able to stay home more, we were still creating ourselves that same job where we're going to be in touch with it all the time. So then we started to migrate towards wholesale, and we had a whole bunch of little cool failed business ventures along the way.
Like what?
One of our more awesome ones was we created a website dedicated to My Little Pony.
I have 2 daughters. I'm sure they love that.
Well, we were right. I mean, we were focused on that crowd because not only is there a lot of fanfare from the younger side. There's a lot of fanfare from the older side as well with bronies and things like that. Yeah.
So why that? Why did you decide to do that?
Just because, we had a lot of success selling My Little Pony products, and particularly a lot of success selling out-of-print My Little Pony products on Amazon. Like you would find products that, had been discontinued and stuff, and you would see them sell for, a traditional $10 retail product would be selling for $50 or $60. So it let us know that it was a very appreciable market, and that it had a lot of legs even beyond the print dates. So that was why we focused there, and ultimately that website did fairly well, and we ended up selling it. But it wasn't for us. It wasn't what we were trying to do. And then we found wholesale and started really working with that, and I was a lot more comfortable with that because it was more similar to the job I had left. So I had a lot of experience working with distributors and brands and things like that. But it was very awkward because Amazon. I think Amazon kind of changed the game a little bit with how brands approach their products being sold. Whenever I worked at the business, the previous business, it was no problem to get people to sell you product. Like if people actively wanted to sell you product because you represented a new market. So basically, whenever I would reach out to vendors or whatever, and I told them at that business that we'd love to carry your product, they were excited. They were basically they were beating down our doors because they knew we had a several 100,000 person mailing list. We had a website, a PR5 website. Like for all intents and purposes, we were their ideal market. Yeah. But it was different.
Now you have a little different positioning when you're reaching out to wholesalers.
Exactly, and it was funny because we ran into this issue initially where we would reach out to brands and they would just be like, man, I appreciate it, but not interested. And it's like,
why is that? Why were they saying no?
That was what completely confused us at first because it's like, why are they turning down my money, right? Like I'm just trying to buy product. But they realized a lot of brands even then were starting to realize that they had saturation on Amazon, right? That there are already people selling my product. Like all I'm doing is introducing more risk into that environment by letting you sell it. Like you represent risk, right? Because if you're not increasing sales, and then you're at best you're insignificant, and at worst you cause problems. So in retrospect, it made a lot of sense to why they didn't want to work with us. And then so we focused initially with distributors, and when it went to trade shows, and that worked out completely horribly for us, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you focused in what you knew in terms of toys or what?
Awkwardly enough, we actually tried to go away from toys because, number one, we wanted to kind of learn how to do wholesale from a new perspective. But more importantly, we wanted to get away from the seasonality, because like if you looked at a graph of our sales in previous years, more than 50% of our sales were coming in November and December. And whenever we started talking about that, it was like, that's great, but it's kind of scary. Yeah. Like when you think about it, like what happens if our account would have been suspended or something in that period? Like that would have crippled us. So we wanted to move a little bit away from as much seasonality, and so we were focusing on more on health and personal care, to be honest, because we realized our initial thoughts with health and personal care was that it's a replenishable product that people, we originally thought of replenishable only as consumable, but eventually that kind of changed our mind. Like the dynamic of Amazon is that effectively everything is replenishable, right? Because if I'm selling garbage cans, for example, while I may not sell a garbage can to the same person over and over and over, there's always somebody wanting to buy garbage cans. And you can look at a graph and see that demand literally always exists. Like within 5%, 20, 30, 40 sales a month, like pretty much those products will sell consistently year round. And once we realized that, that kind of changed our mindset towards what we considered replenishable and how we approach products in general. So why did trade shows not work? I would expect they would work, actually, because you're shaking someone's hand, you're in front of them, this is a real person. Sure, but that was one of the reasons it didn't work. Is it cuts you short on research, right? Like you're trying to make decisions more on the spot, and that's not where we wanted to be. I'm not great at that. Like I like doing research. I like trying to come up with the right answer. But beyond that, I mean, we're introverts. Awkwardly enough, I mean, we're sitting here talking, but in a large crowd, I mean, I feel awkward. Like I'm not really comfortable talking to people. I think a lot of people are. Yeah, for sure. And so that definitely didn't. Being there, shaking hands, play to your strengths. Exactly. And even, it was just one of those things where we did go, and then we had this other thing where it's like, all the products that we're looking at were pretty lukewarm. There was no home runs necessarily, and that's just, part of what we were, looking at as opposed to what was there. Because you go to one of those trade shows like an ASD, and I mean, you literally can't go to every booth. It's just not. I walked ASD for an hour, and I think I hit like a very small, tiny corner of ASD. For sure. And if you're doing any kind of due diligence and stuff like that, you just can't. So, I mean, that was part of the products that we were looking at and what kind of drew our attention. But everything was fairly lukewarm. But what I realized when we were out there, and this was our mistake. This is the mistake, and I would caution people if they ever get into this type of business to not do this. And it was, we were out there after that first day. I was like, Eric, man, we got to, we've racked up a bunch of bills being here. We've got to spend some money. Like, even though we're not finding stuff, I mean, it's got to be a concentrated effort to find product. And that's actually the definite wrong mindset that you want, is to feel like you have to make purchases. Because then you're looking at deals through, colored glasses, so to speak. And so what ended up happening is we ended up buying a bunch of products that looked pretty decent at the time. By the time we got home, they were literally all crushed because everybody else is buying those products too, right? And that's the dynamic is whenever you're dealing with distributors and traditional wholesalers, is that they just want business. They just want to move units. They don't care really who they're selling to. I mean, the only thing that makes me different from you is how much I'm spending. Like, if you're spending more, you're a better customer. If I'm spending more, I'm a better customer. And it was so frustrating when we got back, because we get back and we're like, gosh, all this money spent, now we're just dead. So we just went ahead and sold through it, and we're just continuing to plod along. And we got pretty discouraged, to be honest with you. And it was, this was in 2014, and I was like, I'll be honest, man, I don't know how anybody makes any money doing this. Right. And it was funny because I was literally looking. This is the moment that it kind of all clicked for us and changed. And I was looking at a product on Amazon, and I was like, I go through and I order these. I call these distributors, and I get these stupid catalogs. And I just can't find anything. Like, I find one product if I'm lucky, and I spend hours and hours and hours and hours, and it just feels like wholesale arbitrage. That's what it felt like. I was just effectively leafing through somebody's store. You know what I mean? Yeah. And instead of doing it in the store, you're doing it online. Right. And I was like, this to be honest, it sucks. Like it's just we've traded one prison cell for the next one. And I was looking at that product on the screen, and I was like, why can't I just carry that product? Like, that's the difference, is I just want to carry that product. I don't want to go looking to see what people have. I just want to carry that one. Why can't I do that? And, we were sitting there, and I was like, hell, let's call them. Let's call that company and see if we can carry that product. And, that seems like a very logical thing, right? But all the trainings and all the stuff we were looking at up on Wholesale told you to go through distributors, or told you to go through brand reps and all this other stuff. And it's, that wasn't working for us. Objectively, it was not working. It was causing our business to fail. But I called this brand, and I was talking to them, and they told me that it's like, we're already working with several Amazon sellers. We're not really interested in working with anybody else. And I was like, oh man, this is so frustrating. And why won't they just do business with us? Right. And what the end, but then when we started putting it in context and thinking about it, because we're really stubborn people. I mean, that's for better or for worse. We are very stubborn. And I was talking to Eric, and I was like, it's just frustrating that they won't deal with us, and I don't know why. Like, I can't. And so then we started asking why. Like, oh, why don't you want to work with us? And then it's just like, oh, you guys, if we work with you, you're just another seller. You're just another seller selling our product on that same listing, and it doesn't increase our sales, doesn't really do anything. It's just, there's no reason to have you as a seller. You're taking business away from our sellers who've carried our product for up to years. Yeah. And I was like, when you think about it, we were, and that's whenever we kind of changed our dynamic, and it was we went from thinking, our model of thinking changed to, the people who aren't actively helping actively helping these brands are really just hurting them. And so our mindset changed from how can I help them beyond giving them money. And that became the basis for our entire business. Like, that became the basis for eventually the Wholesale formula, was how can I make myself useful to companies or people without spending money with them? So to put that into practice, so to speak, the next brand I called, I talked to them, and they also didn't want to work with us. And I was like, hey, realistically, you should want to work with us, because I'd be happy to update your listing. Like, look at your description. It is actually terrible. I mean, it doesn't even have one. And then let's look at one of your competitors. And they're like, oh wow, I would love to get that fixed. And it's like, if you just work with me, man, I'd be happy to fix it for you. And it'll take me 10 minutes, and I'll talk to you, and we'll nail down the copy and everything. And that brand wanted to work with us immediately. And it was that was like the real light bulb moment of, if we help people, and they want to work with us. And whenever you think about it in terms of, that just makes sense. I mean, it's reciprocity in the truest form. Yeah,
you add value to them, and they want to work with you. Totally. Talk about the research project. The process of the research, because this is your skill set. This is your sweet spot. You like doing the research. You do a ton of research, probably more than the normal person. So you probably reject, who knows, like 49 products, and you choose one out of the 50. So,
sure. Well, I mean, once we kind of had that nailed down, right, and we realized that, wow, people really will work with us. We just need to be able to help them out beyond just placing an order. So once we realized that, like, we started looking for products that we thought could use our help. And this was really, really hard at first, because initially, when you're coming particularly from the retail arbitrage background, the products you typically see or pay attention to are the ones you buy in store, right? Well, those products, like Hasbro, they don't need my help. Nike, they don't need my help. Like, if I make a listing better and it increases the sales 300%, they don't care. Like, that is literally not even noticeable to those brands. So then we started thinking about, who can I actually help? And it's, you're effectively developing your avatar, right? It's like, who could benefit from this? Who's going to want to work with me because I can help them? So we started isolating down to small to mid-sized companies. And that was what we were doing, is we started looking for small to mid-sized companies with products that sold well, and that had issues with their products that we thought we could help them with.
The question probably always comes up, Dan, which is, what tools do you like? What softwares do you use? Because I'm sure manually you don't go through thousands and tens of thousands of pages to
Sure.
find it. What do you like to use?
And this is I think a lot of people will be shocked by this, but we ran when we started this business, particularly the wholesale side, we actually ran it without software until we were doing $100,000 a month. And that's I think that's impressive. Like that it's that with this type of model that you're able to do that. Now I don't think that's
just because you had a strict criteria, or why is that?
Right. That was it. Is a lot of what we teach and stuff is the manual base that we used, and then we've accentuated it with software, and they made it better since then. But ultimately, the software that we use for research is Jungle Scout. And Jungle Scout is just one of those softwares that kind of helps you cull through listings faster and filter by the criteria you're looking for. So it just takes those same criteria that we are already using and kind of adds steroids to the mix, because you're able to go through so much faster and kind of find what you're looking for.
Any other softwares or tools that you like?
Over the course of time, I mean, we've had to add stuff to facilitate it in our business. But my suggestion for people is always to not add don't add a software to fix a problem that you don't have. So like, while softwares work in my business, they may not work in your business because you may not be at that same point. But like, now we use Restock Pro for inventory management, and they, that software does a fantastic job. But we have hundreds and hundreds of products that we have to keep track of. Without something like that, it would be very, very difficult. But in the early stages, you don't need something to keep track of inventory management, because you have 3 SKUs or 4 SKUs or something like that. Another software we use is a repricer. We currently use App Eagle, and that's just to keep our prices in line with competition. And it's, again, because we have hundreds and hundreds of SKUs that we need to focus on at one time, and it would be very, very hard and actually cost ineffective to do that with a person as opposed to a software. So that's the thing is we, with our software decisions, we just look for situations in our business where a software replacement would make it more efficient and more cost effective.
Dan, what are some of those baseline criteria people should be considering when they're looking at, whatever? It could be wholesale, it could be private label. Sure.
Well, with private label, I feel like I'm probably not the best guy to give advice on that. Like, we did have some success with it, but I've literally not done it since 2014. I mean, we've been hardcore wholesale since July of 2014, and we're completely full-time wholesale as of January 2015. But with wholesale, I mean, the criteria, the base criteria of what we're looking for is we are looking for products that sell more than 40 times a month. And the reason we want that is we want there to be sustained existing demand. And I don't want to ever send product, because that was the thing, is we came at this from a perspective of $600, right? So it's, cash flow's always been an issue for us. Well, that's always the most important thing in our business, is making sure that our inventory turn rates are in line, and that we're getting our cash back out and they are able to reinvest over and over and over and over. Like, maybe if you're a lot cash heavier, you can do more investment and stuff like that, and build products. But our focus has always been on just realizing a quick ROI and reinvesting our cash. So we want products that sell more than 40 times a month, because I can't think of anything worse than having a product sitting there and not selling, because that's money. I mean, that's money literally out of cash flow, and that takes away your ability to use the things that you're good at. Like, we're good at research, we're good at making purchasing decisions. So I want to increase the amount of times that I'm able to do that. So that's the first criteria. The second criteria is not sold by Amazon. Now, the reason that we just don't want to compete with Amazon. It's not that you can't win. I mean, you absolutely can. It's not that you can't sell products if Amazon's on the listing. You absolutely can. But the Amazon doesn't share the buy box the same way. Like, Amazon,
they're not playing fairly with the buy box.
Exactly. And it's, sometimes you may get an equitable share of the buy box, and other times you may get 1%. And
it's not predictable.
Right. And who builds a business? Who says, you know what, today I'm going to flip a whole bunch of coins, and that's how I'm going to run my business? And when we were thinking about it in that perspective, it's like, there's a lot of great opportunities, but it comes at the opportunity cost of being unpredictable. So we focused on reliable cash flow in our business, and that was why we didn't want to compete with Amazon. And then the third criteria that we use, and the base criteria, is that the product has more than 3 sellers. And
more than 3.
Thinking like, wow,
right?
Exactly. And a lot of people would think, wow, why would you just not want the product that has 1 seller, so you're only competing against 1 person? And it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive.
Definitely
criteria,
is.
Right? But the logic behind it is that typically whenever there's 1 seller on a product, that means it's likely a private label product, or it's likely an existing exclusive for someone else. So, can you convert
you may
those
be
products?
kind of running up a dead end if you're doing research on that.
Exactly, and that's it. I mean, can you convert those? Absolutely, you can definitely convert those, but the opportunity cost on converting one of those is significantly higher than working with an existing listing with 3 sellers or more, and just providing value there. So again, everything for us is built around opportunity cost and efficiency, because our goal is to have a small team. I mean, we don't want a gigantic team of people. We want a small team of really efficient people that don't have to walk all over each other to do a bunch of work.
Dan, are there ever cases where you do ask for exclusives on Amazon, or not really?
Yes, but it's more of we let those opportunities come to us, because here's the way I look at exclusives, and a lot of people want to reach out and they're like, hey, I'd love to be your exclusive seller. Well, everybody who contacts them would love to be their exclusive seller. Just like any beautiful woman walking down the street is not, you don't walk up to her and say, will you marry me? Because, that's not how it works, right? There has to be some level of introduction, some level of familiarity, and I want them to see how valuable I am. Right. I want them to want to work with me. I never want it to be an obligation to work with me. I want people to be excited about it, because that's how change is made. I mean, that's how growth is realized, right? As both of us are excited and invested into a project, it's going to be more likely to succeed than not. So the partners that we're looking for, those types of relationships tend to materialize over time. Mm-hmm. Right now I think we have 8 or 9 exclusives, and we work very closely with those brands. But it was all of those
built that over time, started,
right? And it was just over time we would do work that would help them and help their brand and help promote them, and they got to see that we were a great partner to deal with. And then they wanted to work more closely, and eventually just exclusive. And that's we're very non-aggressive in going for exclusives because we want true partnerships to grow.
Stan, I definitely see advantages with the wholesale side. I want to talk about some of the challenges, but advantages, I want you to tell me what other advantages there are. Obviously, it's a known product. You have a known kind of sales velocity. You can kind of see what's selling. What are the other advantages? It's kind of vetted out. Like it's more of a predictable piece than, whether it's, private label or something like that. Are there other advantages that you
For
see?
certain. Yeah. One of the things is because initially we didn't have a ton of money to lose. It's a very safe model. Like, that's the thing, is when you're investing in products that are already selling well, like the variable in this is price, right? Like, worst case scenario tend to be, because, when you start talking about buying and distribution, it's different than buying in retail. When you're buying in retail, maybe in Chicago, there was a big sale this weekend and you got 50% off on a product. As a retail arbitrage seller, I can't compete with you, right?
Right.
I just get crushed. Now with wholesale, it's very, very unlikely that your price is much different than mine. Like, even if you're a very big seller, like you're talking micro percentage points, right? Like, you might have got a 5% better price, or 10% tops. Like, that's how it works. There's just not, wholesale is about efficiency, not over discounting, because they want to preserve the price of their products. So whenever from that perspective, it's our focus has always been on trying to make sure that we're investing in those types of products that sell well and carry as much margin they can. So, I think I got away from your question a little bit.
No, it was just the advantages, right? It's like it's safe, like you're saying, it's not as risky because there's more of a level playing field there.
Exactly. The worst case scenario, you tend to lose 5 or 10% on a product, and then your money's out of it. And that's what I'm talking about with cash flow is once my money's out of it, if I lost 5 or 10% on that line and I realize it's going to be inconsistent, I just never invest in it again and I find a better product. But my money's only dead for basically 30 days because we don't invest a lot into products either. We focus on replenishing our products as opposed to going deep. So we carry a 30-day supply of products or 45-day supply of products tops. So it's pretty minimal investment, and I think that's one of the major advantages. Another major advantages is that our products are 99% sourced domestically. So our speed to market is very, very fast. Like I place an order today, it's going to take them 2 to 3 days to ship that. And that lands with our prep center or warehouse, and then that product is shipped onto Amazon, and you're live in Amazon within a week. So I mean, the dead period for my money is again reduced, and that's cash flow has always really been a really big part of what we do. So having dead periods of I've paid out money and I'm waiting on product wasn't a good idea for us. And then another, you touched on it earlier, was the predictability. I'm not having to build sales rank. I'm not having to build traffic and things like that. Instead, I'm literally able to take a great selling product and just make it slightly better, right? So, I mean, predictability, I can almost look at it. And if I use a service like Keepa that's free. You can look at a graph and you can see the consistency in price. So, I mean, if that price has been really consistent for a long period of time, like I can literally almost look at it and just tell you what my monthly return is. Like, I'm going to invest $1,000 into this product and I'm going to make $250 profit or $300 profit every month. And that's, that's what wholesale is. It's not about home runs. It's about tons and tons of singles. And whenever people always ask us about our business, it's the most consistent business. Like, we don't try to teach people how to hit grand slams because I think that's more of a right place, right time situation. Yeah. We teach people how to build sustainable businesses that are just built on, cash in and cash out consistently, month in and month out.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the challenges. One, obviously, you talked about early on, which was challenging, was finding product, right? You have a certain criteria. So, I mean, if you have a criteria and you use a software, that can be overcome, but I'm sure that's one thing. And then the other, maybe, I don't know if you talk about it, obviously you're competing at a certain level, a little pricing, buy box. I don't know, how does that factor in as a challenge for someone who's doing wholesale? Sure.
And this is a big tip for people. Whenever you're applying to wholesale accounts, like this was this is effectively what the wholesale formula was, right? It was our methodology for starting to and developing relationships with vendors, right? Like wholesale as a concept is really easy. I mean, it's buy things at wholesale price and sell them for retail price and realize that profit. But the necessity in our business for the wholesale formula, and all it is it's just a blueprint of our business. It's what we do day in and day out. Was that these companies didn't necessarily want to work with us, right? And that was one of the biggest challenges was trying to get companies to work with us and realizing strategies to aid that. That was honestly that's been one of the bigger challenges. Now, as far as pricing and things like that, like with the buy box and variable price, we tend to what we've noticed is that whenever you work with brands that just say yes to everybody, like if you call them and you're like, hey, I'd love to work with you, and you're like, yeah, man, let me go ahead and open you an account. Like, here's our catalog, here's our price list. Like, there you go. What we noticed is over time, those products go down, they get crushed, right? Like, because there's so much competition on it, right? Like, if they're telling me yes, like, while I would love to believe that I'm special, I know that they're telling you yes, and I know that they're telling the other 10 people who call them that day yes, right? And if anybody can make money, that's what they're doing. They're just buying that product and shipping it on in. And over time, people try to get more and more of the buy box, or their sales decrease because there's more competition. And you start to see that. Yeah. You start to see that price degrade. So the brands that tend to work out for us long term are the ones whenever we call them, and they say, no, man, we're not interested in working with you. Like, we've already got representation on Amazon. Like, that's exciting. It's more exciting to be told no. Work with. Yeah. Because I realized, originally, I'll be honest with you, whenever we would hear that answer, it was just, man, like, this is terrible. Time to call somebody else. But now it's whenever we hear that, it's yes. Like, we get excited because we know that everybody hears that answer. And while it's not as, you don't always turn around.
Entry. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the the meat and potatoes of it is there is now a barrier to entry, and then whenever they're declining me, they're declining everybody. It's nothing personal. So if I can convert that person, now it's harder. I'll preface with it is much harder to convert that person who told you no than it is to just go find more people that say yes. But when you convert them, they're telling everybody else no too. So that product stays good for a long period of time. And we carry a lot of the same products that we carried in 2014. And it's that's what's made our business grow is effectively it's you take an existing level of sales and you just add accounts to it and you grow over time.
Yeah, I love that. Now you think of it in the opposite respect when you get the rejections.
Exactly. I mean, it's an opportunity.
Dan, what I've heard the term branded wholesale. How does that differ from regular wholesale?
Well, I mean, with branded wholesale is that's more of what we do is we we don't deal with unbranded products or more generic style products.
Okay. I guess I was thinking like customization, like you were adding customization to the already branded wholesale, but that's not correct.
Well, typically, I mean, I think a lot of these definitions are more superfluous, but yeah. And what that means to me is more of like your generic products that are being purchased from like an Alibaba or something like that. And again, it's just whenever you're doing that, you're not building real relationships, and that's why we tend to steer clear of it.
Totally. So process for launching, man. So you talk a little about the research, the criteria. What's your process for, okay, you got it.
Well, I mean, that's the beautiful part, right? Like that's what makes this work is once they say yes, my process for going live and starting to make money is immediate. Like I don't have to do anything to get this product off the ground. The product's already selling incredibly well. So whenever I send in that first order, I'm already realizing sales. As long as I'm competitive, sales are happening. And a lot of the companies we work with have MAP pricing and things like that. And what MAP pricing is it's minimum advertised price. The retailers that they work with, they want them to sell it at this price or higher. So you don't tend to see a lot of those races to the bottom. And a lot of the companies we work with don't want to work with a ton of sellers because we're able to help them meet those needs.
Favorite story from someone going through the wholesale formula?
Oh, there's so many, man. Like it's honestly, we've been fortunate. We've had a lot of success stories within our community.
What surprised you from someone who got something different out of your formula from maybe what it was intended? Is there any use cases that sometimes the students teach you something of what you didn't realize from going through your own materials? Is there one of those where you learned from feedback you were getting from a student going through it, and they kind of added a layer on?
For sure. For what it's worth, like that's the most valuable part of the wholesale formula for us is that we've added over 2,500 really, really smart people to that community that have went through our course and been successful. And it's when you add that many smart people into the mix and they start to talk about what's working for them. Like our course, like if you looked at our course from day one, it was a direct representation of our model then. And you look at it now, it is literally not even. I don't even know if there's a video. I don't even know if there's one video that's the same. And it's our model has continued to evolve with our community and with their help. Like you'd asked about a success story, and a couple of the really impressive ones that just come to mind are, we have one of our really good friends, Emmerich Manello. He moved to the United States, I think in about 2011, and he's a French guy, and he didn't speak any English. So it was like really, really difficult for him to get started. And whenever he lived in France, he was a web developer. But whenever he moved to the United States, he moved to Las Vegas because he was playing poker. And, that was he didn't have to talk, and it was just something he could do. And that's how he learned to speak English, was at the poker table. And then, he took our course in January of 2015. And, he had a really, really small Amazon business at the time. Like he had been doing retail arbitrage and was, doing $2,000 to $5,000 a month in sales or something. And within 6 months, at that point he was working as a web developer for UNLV, and he was able to leave his job. He bought a new house, and that's his whole business now. His whole business is Amazon wholesale. And a lot of that was, he took what we had and he introduced his own flair into it. And that's what we always tell people is, the most successful business you can build is just taking a great concept and adding your personal flair into it, or what makes you unique. And that was what he did, is he added that to it. And then we had another lady who she had a really tough situation. She was a single mom. She was on assistance and government assistance. And she took our course, and she said it was literally she had to borrow money from her family to get her to start whenever she started scouting and sourcing inventory. And now she is within a year she was doing over $30,000 a month in sales consistently, and is just now has a real business. I mean, her business she has a lot. Most of the majority of her accounts are exclusives or semi-exclusives, and it's because she's in a niche, right? And this is the thing that I love about it is people get to bring their outside passion into it, and it just accentuates it. With her, one of her big things was she had a lot of trouble getting pregnant, and she always wanted to be a mother. And to the point that she did so much research on fertility that she became a fertility practitioner. Like she picked up her certifications and necessary. At it. Right. And, now all the products that she sells on Amazon are related to her fertility practice. And, it's turned into, she said it has literally changed every part and aspect of her life. And that's the kind of thing
that's fulfilling.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for in that community and what we love to hear.
Dan, first of all, thank you. This has been really informative. Love it. Two last questions I always ask, since this is Inspired Insider. I ask what's been a proud moment, and then what's been a difficult time that you had to push through. What's been a difficult time in the journey?
To be honest, I'm one of the odd people. Like, we've obviously had a whole lot of difficult times. I try not to dwell on it. I always try to be one of the people that look forward. So I can't talk about it from like a perspective of this catastrophe happened, because I don't look at it in terms of catastrophes. It's like I look at it in terms of things we've learned from, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest ones that we learned from was that, and this was what drove us to really wanting relationships with our vendors, is it was more towards the beginning of when we started our wholesale journey. We thought we found an amazing deal, and we literally invested every dollar we had into it and got crushed.
Wow.
Like absolutely crushed. Products, when we bought them, by the time we received them, we're literally selling for less on Amazon than we paid, and you start factoring in fees. I mean, we were destroyed. And that puts you to the test right there. Like, it was every dollar we had. And it was one of those things where we had to come up with a creative solution, and we started working with other folks and started reaching out to other people within that industry of the products that we were carrying. And I was able to find a liquidator who, they couldn't pay us enough cash to get us out of the jam, but we were able to trade that product for a more diluted version, because we had literally thousands and thousands of this one SKU. And I was able to trade my thousands and thousands of that one SKU, one bad product, for 50 of this and 100 of that and 20 of this, and that was able to dilute it enough that we were able to sell through and start recouping enough cash to get back on our feet and really move forward.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's sometimes the learnings that really help other people when they're experiencing that.
And this is one of the things we always tell our students is the best lessons hurt a little bit, and that's and it's unfortunate that it has to happen like that. But it's a lot of people just don't learn from success, right? I mean, it's just they accept success, and it just happens. But you always get to the point whenever something hurts that you learn from it. And it's, if nothing else, it's a survival instinct. I don't want this pain again. I don't want to go through this again. And you start looking at all the factors that went into what got you there. And that's ultimately, that whole process helped us so much with our research. And it helped us realize the absolute importance of building relationships, because that doesn't happen now. And it doesn't happen because the companies I work with, I know where their product's going, and they legitimately want me to be a part of their team. So there's not the same kind of surprises that we ran into with that situation.
Thanks for sharing that. What about on the flip side, Dan? Proud moment from the business.
Honestly, the proud moments for us have been the most proud moment was the first time we went to Las Vegas, and with the TWF, the wholesale formula, and we went to a dinner, and getting to meet the people for the first time made it so real that it's like you talk to these people online, and
it's different.
It's great that you hear about their success and stuff like that, but whenever you get to literally talk to somebody and hug them, and they tell you that what you did literally changed their life, I remember the most vivid conversation I had was with one of our awesome ladies in our community, Cheryl Brightman, and Cheryl came up to me and was just talking about that first dinner we had with them in Vegas, and she was talking about the struggles of her business, and I was giving her some advice. And next time I saw Cheryl, like, she was crying, and she said she was bawling, and she said that everything was going well for the first time in a long time for her, and that she had been bordering bankruptcy, and it was doing very well. She has one account right now that generates over $200,000 a year in profit, and her business has grown significantly from that point too. So it's just like seeing that change and what it really means to somebody. Like you read the posts and all that kind of stuff, and it just doesn't have that same gravity that it has of seeing someone in person and realizing that you really did have an impact on their life. It's just an unbelievable feeling, and it's so emotional. Like that it was easily by far the most satisfying moments for us are generally not within our own business, but within the wholesale formula community.
Totally. Dan, thank you so much. Where should we point people towards? Where should they check out?
We have our website, thewholesaleformula.com. And we have a blog on there that helps. We've invested a little bit differently in our blog. Like, we don't try to just shoot articles out for the sake of shooting articles out. Like, all of our articles are very, very in depth and focused on trying to get people started and trying to get people to understand the model, because we truly believe in it. And we truly believe that and the power it has. The power of entrepreneurship that particularly has to change people's lives for the better. And that's, I just love being a catalyst for that as much as I can.
Yeah. I want to be the first one to thank you, Dan. Everyone check out the Wholesale Formula, THE, wholesaleformula.com. Thanks again.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.